Welcome back to the Building the Groundwork podcast. I've got Jason Richmond, the Chief Operating Officer for BuildWitt, who I would call the chief storyteller for the construction industry, someone that I've gotten to know over the last year or so. Welcome, Jason.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Super excited to be here, and looking forward to the conversation, reconnecting, and definitely getting ready for Summit. So happy to be here.
Yep, and the summit is the big BuildWitt Dirt World Summit. It's what year is it?
Yeah, this is year 2. Last year was our first year. It was an idea in February, fully executed in October. We brought a little over 700 people, almost 800 people to Houston, Texas last year. This year we're having the second annual. It'll be in San Antonio, Texas. We've just crossed 750 attendees. We're on our way to 1,200, so it's going to be an incredible lineup. People can learn more about it at dirtworld.com. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's really what it's about is uniting the industry around building better businesses, leadership, and workforce development. So definitely less than 90 days away. Really excited for it.
Yeah, I look forward to talking about that in a little bit because we've participated as a sponsor the first year. We're going to be back this year. I love the event. But where I wanted to start, we're trying to find our lane as a podcast, and one of the things that kind of has been a consistent theme with who I've had on is like career path, like learning someone's career path in the construction space, and so you're interesting because and on the surface, you're a perfect match with BuildWitt where you are today because of your extensive experience in the construction industry before. But you're, I think, third or fourth generation in the construction business, working for your family's paving business. Is that right?
Yeah, so definitely fourth generation road builder. When the Indianapolis Motor Speedway went from bricks to asphalt, my great-grandfather paved the track for the Grady brothers. So my dad got me my start when I was 18 years old. I went to work for my father on a grade crew. So I started on a shovel, and I spent 3 years on a grade crew, 4 years on an asphalt paving crew. I left for about 18 months and went to work for an engineering firm as a resident project representative. But came back as an estimator project manager, then business development manager, then director of marketing and business development before leaving that organization. It was a really large material supply and construction company here in the Midwest, and joining BuildWitt in January of 2022. Got some schooling along the way, got my undergrad and my MBA, taught in the MBA program for a little bit. So I've kind of got that school of hard knocks field, kind of grew up within a construction industry, but also just a learn and grow guy. So you see all these books behind me. I love to read. They've been my mentors and my leaders. Every time I've tried to solve a problem, I've been most of the time one of the younger ones in the room. At BuildWitt, I'm not one of the younger ones anymore, but still turning to these books for guidance.
Does your family still run the paving business today?
So technically, it wasn't our business. It was the company that I worked for was Irving Materials Incorporated, or IMI, and they had a division called EMB Paving. And so my great-grandfather had his own business. My dad worked for him when he was getting started, but ultimately he ended up working for EMB Paving. And that's how I got my start was working for that organization and Dad's since retired. He has lived a good life in the construction industry. He just moved to Florida and is living that retirement life now. So it's definitely a possibility for you to work a hard, good construction life and then retire well. So he's enjoying the good life.
On the paving crew, did you ever operate the paver?
Yeah, so definitely, my primary job was I was a screw man on the back. I was actually a water truck driver, so I would come out as the first one to show up on the job. Back then, I actually had to hand pump the fuel. So you can think about, shuttle buggy, paver, 3 rollers, et cetera. It was usually 2 trips, so almost 500 gallons. So I got my workout in back in the day. But first one to the job, usually the last one to leave. I did everything from, loop man, screw man, ran the paver, had a lot of fun. I will tell you that there was a huge sense of pride on the cruise that I was on. One of my favorite things to do was, at the end of the day, especially on cold joints, kind of get back in a truck and drive over the pavement that we had just laid, and making sure we had smooth transitions and a smooth road. So it was a lot of fun, with the camaraderie of the crew, and ultimately delivering high quality projects.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. Paving the motor speedway is a pretty neat claim to fame.
Yeah, for sure. And what's really cool is my dad was able to find some black and white photos, and it actually has a photo. If I could, because it's a podcast, I'll try to paint the picture. So black and white. There's no stands. They've got the sloping and the banking at the track. They've got this old, pickup truck is what it looks like. It wasn't even like a triaxle. It looked like a pickup truck with a dump bed that's dumping into a paver. And then on the high side of the track is an old dozer that's got a chain tied to the paver to keep the paver from sliding down. So, just the apparel, the attire, it was wild, button-up shirts, pants, trousers. Cool thing is Dad had those photos. There 3 really good photos, had them printed, framed, actually gave it to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and the photo of my great grandfather is in the Hall of Fame there. So kind of a cool piece of our history.
Do you know how they won that job, out of curiosity? Like, was it bid out, or was the company just so well known in the area that it had a leg up that way because of the reputation?
Great question. I have no idea how that happened back then. In today's day and age, Milestone Contracting, one of the big local contractors, is the one who has the relationship. It's a private track, so it's private bid. They get to choose. Milestone is a part of the Heritage Group, and they've got the Heritage Research Center. So, the technology that goes into, the asphalt, the binder, the track itself is just incredible. And so it's privately bid, at this day and age, but back then I have no idea. That was probably back in the 40s.
Some handshakes, and then
some handshakes,
probably
for
the biggest job that is in the area.
Yeah, 100%.
Very cool. So that's got to be really helpful for you in your role today, like having worked, on a crew for a contractor at BuildWitt. So you briefly touched on, working in the business, then going to school, teaching a little bit. How did you connect with BuildWitt?
Yeah, so my last role, Director of Marketing and Business Development at Irving Materials, large material supply and construction company. One of the biggest challenges that, they were facing was, this employer branding, recruiting, attracting, hiring, people, right? Like you could no problem marketing the business to drive demand, but it was really, how do you market the business to be the employer of choice? And so, you mentioned storytelling earlier. I'm out there looking, okay, what marketing agencies should we work with for this, attraction and storytelling, and that can help, fill these careers. And, I started following Aaron, online, and obviously he's just got such great attention and kind of bucking status quo and kind of thinking about things differently, and really fell in love with the brands that they were building and some of the work that they was doing. And so just reached out to him and started talking to him about, potentially working with our organization. And after about a 6-month period of talking with them, I said, hey guys, it's not no, but it's not right now. We're a long sales cycle. Love to work with you guys, but this is just going to take a little bit longer than I had hoped for. And I'll never forget, Dan Briscoe says, hey, how many times are you going to be disappointed before you decide it's time to make a change? And it was just like, hit me right, in the gut. And he's like, man, you're exactly what we need. We're going to go and grow this business. We care about, our mission of making the dirt world a better place. We want to build a leadership platform. We want to build a training platform. We want to really start attracting, hiring, training, and engaging the workforce in a bigger way, and would love to have you come be a part of BuildWitt. So I joined in January of 2022, really started in the creative division, and helped help lead that piece of it. So that freed up Dan and Aaron to go and do some of these other things like building the software and whatnot. And when I got there, just looking at, business and looking for P&Ls or business plan or whatnot. And let's just say that it was a startup and we were lacking a lot of the systems and processes potentially that most businesses should and could have. And so that's when we implemented EOS within the creative group, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And in about 6 months' time, we had got the right people on the bus in the right seats, got the accountability chart, all new systems and processes, some go-to-market strategies. The team just did an incredible job of I came in and asked questions. The team is the one who's really done all the hard work. And in about 6 months' time, we had actually created about a 6-month backlog of work, and we were set to start making money in August, which was incredible. And at the time, Aaron's like, man, this is awesome. Would you be interested in doing this for all of BuildWitt? So July of 22, that first year, transitioned to the Chief Operating Officer role. And that's when we started digging into how do we really make a business out of all of these products and services and offerings that we have at BuildWitt, and really start working towards a profitable organization. We had done some seed funding and, did a Series A, but that investment money only lasts so long. So we needed to make sure that we were in a position to last long term and make sure that we were adding value to our customers to create that sustainable business. So yeah, that's how I joined BuildWitt, and man, I'm super grateful to be here.
Yeah, interesting. So you really started out as a potential customer of theirs, and then as you just got to know the organization, and kudos to them for kind of recognizing the attributes that you had personally, and they kind of started that conversation. But when you joined, do you remember or do you know what employee number you were?
48.
How many people they had? 48. Okay.
I was 48, and then we got to 86 that year.
Okay. And they were, I followed along with the company, and like most of us, you make, the overused word is pivot, but you make tweaks, you change your business model a little bit. So when you joined, they were more of a marketing focused company. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. Aaron was tip of the spear with influence and, the vlog, the social media, all of those things. But we were a marketing company that was serving customers. And then that's when they were starting to move into more of a, hey, let's build leadership training, which then ultimately became BuildWitt training.
So what was the impetus for that change? What were the discussions internally because if you look at BuildWitt's presence, and Aaron, you can see why they were successful in marketing. He's got a great eye for it, successful landing a lot of these customers. He speaks to them. Everything, the aesthetic is beautiful. What was the reasoning in those rooms for hey, we see an opportunity in leadership development and we should kind of move the business this way? What was the why?
Yeah, and I'll kind of paraphrase, because obviously that was early on in my career, so access to lots of information, but definitely not all conversations. And Dan and Aaron have been very visionary in leading and guiding our organization for where we're going, and still do to this day. But I would just say everything always points back to the mission of making the dirt world a better place. And with a creative agency, they could really serve about 30 companies a year, unless you just keep adding people and it's a service business. You're just chasing, small incremental impact. And I think they always wanted to make a big impact on the entire industry. And so as they started thinking about, some of the biggest challenges or problems, in the industry with this whole people life cycle and whatnot, the quickest way to make an impact is through leadership. And so if they could, build leadership training that was aligned with the values and the culture and the vision that they had, it was a way to scale and start to make a bigger impact. Well, as they developed BuildWitt leaders and started rolling that out early on, these owners are like, man, this training is incredible with Jocko and Wally Adamczyk and Jason Schroeder. And they had just some amazing subject matter experts, and it was beautifully told stories and whatnot. But instantly the people or the customers started talking. And it's one thing that BuildWitt's always been great about. Aaron, Dan, Randy, etc. They're always listening to the customers and trying to serve, their target audience. And what they said was, hey, this is great, but I got to hire people and I need to put them to work. And they're coming from, McDonald's or Lowe's, and they know nothing about the industry. I need field first training for my people that are coming on board. They need the basics, like just what to wear on the first day, how to run a shovel, hard skills, soft skills. And so quickly, that's when we started getting into the micro learning training, 3 to 5 minutes, and building out the training platform. So it really became a scalable reason for fulfilling the mission.
Makes total sense. I just had never really knew that part of it.
Yeah.
And so personally, chief operating officer, had you ever been an executive before? Because that's a pretty big, important role to be put into. Yeah,
and I'll just say this, 70 people at BuildWitt might even be over-titled, so I'm totally cool with that. In a startup, in a business, right? Like there's just just this thing. But what I would say is, from a COO role, to me, there's like 3 parts of the business: sales and marketing, operations, finance, right? So now we're leading with EOS. We're starting to think through some of those things. It's about getting the right people on the bus in the right seats, doing the right things, and really leading with, vision and a plan. To me, what COO is it's an opportunity to find the problems or the gaps in the company and then jump in and figure it out. So, there was a time where I was heavy into operations and thinking through, how do we become one BuildWitt? How do we implement EOS? There was a time where it was like, man, we need to bring on Randy from a CFO perspective. We need budgeting. We need to be thinking through our expenses. We need to be changing the way that we're doing some things. And so, there was a time there. And now where I find myself, after thinking through operations and finance is, I spend a lot of my time in that business development side of things, thinking about strategic partnerships, really growing the business, creating opportunities to start to scale, the organization. Because as you know, revenue will set you free, and it takes work. It doesn't just happen. We can have a beautiful business, telling beautiful stories, incredible marketing, connecting with millions of people around the world, but we still have to, put ourselves out there in a way that we can exchange value for value. And so that's part of what I do, is figure out where are the challenges and how do I help serve, in the right capacity. But no, I'd never been a chief anything, and still trying to figure it out, just to be totally honest with you.
Yeah. Hey, look, we all are at a certain level, right? And so that's pretty cool. Like I love talking about challenges and problems.
Sure.
What are some of those challenges that your company has faced in, when you went full speed ahead on the leadership platform and the training?
Yeah, great question. It's it's documented because Aaron leads with transparency. And so, which is one thing I love. It was very uncomfortable for me in the beginning, but now I'm just super vulnerable, super transparent. There's lots of stories out there, but we scaled in terms of number of people at BuildWitt really quickly. Like I said, we got to 86 people by that December of 2022. And that was a lot of people. It's a lot of mouths to feed, a lot of expense, a lot of investment there. And what we found was we became pretty siloed. We had a heavy leadership team. We got to 12 leaders on the leadership team. It's a lot of people with a lot of vision, a lot of ideas, a lot of things that they want to do. So probably too many people on the leadership team. You just scale back to a really smaller, more nimble executive group that could really point the business in the right direction, and then think about an operational leadership team where it's, getting the work done and doing the things in the different departments. Because we were siloed in some of our approaches, we had duplication of roles and responsibilities. We weren't leveraging, people. We weren't leveraging things to really kind of grow the business. And each division was just fighting to make their division or their department successful. And so one of the biggest things that we did was reduce that leadership team, get really clear on the strategic direction, implement one operating system that works for us, get everybody rowing in the same direction, and really chasing, a business model that works. One of the books that we read and that we love, Bob Chapman spoke last year at the summit, and he wrote the book Everybody Matters. And one of the philosophies that he talks about is it is absolutely critical that you build a business model that makes money, so that then you can invest in people, in equipment, in systems, in processes, in your communities, etc. But some people try to do, like the people thing first. And Bob says, no, build a business model that works, and then invest, and then just keep doing it year over year over year. And so that was broken for us. We didn't have a good business model. We've been working on figuring that out for the last couple of years. And I'd say we're closer now than we've ever been.
Well, and I can imagine, like, anyone who started a business, like the heart, it sounds pretty simple, and people could be like, how do you not know that? But when you're starting something new, it's really difficult to understand how to price it, right? Because it doesn't exist to people in the industry, and then you're always towing a line of like, okay, well, but we should be getting paid X for the value we create. So there's a lot that goes into it, and you do have to figure it out over time. It's not that simple.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like I said, we're still navigating that. I will say that, like I've heard Herb Sargent talk about Aaron and kind of this philosophy of like pioneering a new dirt world, and some of the space that we're in. And I think even that Heave's in, like when you're pioneering something, it's not like you can just go and benchmark from somebody that's been there for the last 100 years, because a lot of what we're doing is new. It's very different. And so, as you're building something new and different in an industry that is very traditional and very sacred in their way of doing business, it's not only trying to find a business model that works, but it's also, you're trying to convince people who have done it the way that they've always done it for a number of years. Hey, here's a new way of doing things. And give us a shot. It's very difficult. Leading change is challenging.
So then that makes me want to ask this: are there other companies that BuildWitt looks at as hey, these are ones that we can emulate? They don't have to be in the same industry. Like, for example, with us, for Heave, I look at a lot and I research a lot of marketplaces. We have a new concept for the industry. Some people call it like Uber for diesel mechanics. That's fine. But fundamentally, we're a labor marketplace. And so I look to a lot of labor marketplaces like TaskRabbit or Uber itself, Uber Eats. And, because the fundamentals are the same, supply and demand. And are there certain companies that you guys look at as like a guidepost to like what you're trying to get accomplished?
Sure. The closest thing that I can give you, and something that I've been studying for some time, and we've discussed a little bit. I think at times Aaron would say, no, we're just carving out our own new path and it's our way. We're not looking back and gas pedal down, so, and I love that too. But if I were to benchmark against anybody, it really would be Dave Ramsey and Ramsey Solutions. If you think about Dave Ramsey and Aaron, two influencers out there telling stories, solving a problem, they're using education and training, they're telling stories. They've got a software platform, for EntreLeadership that kind of helps build better businesses. They've got their EntreLeadership Summit, which is super cool. So if you kind of think about is there anybody they're specifically focused on finance and helping everybody in the world, get out of debt. But if you look at their business model, that's the closest thing that I could say that we could align to is really Ramsey Solutions, which a company I deeply respect. I went through FPU myself in 2017. It's when I got my first exposure. I've been following them ever since. Have a great relationship with those guys. Actually went to EntreLeadership Summit this year, and just an incredible business.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me. I can see that. I do like I really appreciate how mission driven the company is. You know, it's not fake. I mean, I've gotten to meet, like, I've spent time with Benjamin Holmgren. You know, I've talked to you a few times. I listen to your podcast. I've had Aaron on our podcast. Like, there's no faking it. It is 100%. Everyone at the company believes in the mission and is all pursuing the goal, which is very cool. And I'm sure it just gives everyone there a ton of energy and belief. Do you, and I can see the need for it too, right? Like, in this industry, I've been a part of it for over 20 years. I'd say that the contracting business, I think, in my opinion, contractors are so, like, focused on projects. Like, hey, we're gonna get this project done. It's mostly like short term. And what you guys, I think, really help and offer is, like, the long-term planning, long-term thinking of developing people, which obviously will lead to the greater good for that company, and help them down the road. Do you have what is your core leadership philosophy? Because leadership is now being talked about more. Like, what is within the fabric of BuildWitt's leadership platform? Like, the certain core beliefs of what makes great leaders.
Yeah, no, it's really good. You know, we've got a lot of benchmarks with people like Jocko Willink and, you know, some of these people. So we're being trained, you know, ourselves. But from a core value standpoint, you know, we've got our list of values that, you know, really drive us. The mission is real. I'll just say this, like, so I came from the industry. My brother still serves in the industry. Aaron is out with the people of the dirt world every day. He's really become kind of a voice of the people of the dirt world. And when we talk about the dirt world, it's not just dirt. It's, you know, it's those who build and support critical infrastructure. So that can be everything from sanitary, storm and water to renewable energy and everything in between: roads, bridges, asphalt, mining, etc. But, you know, from a leadership standpoint, I would just say, we're driven by Aaron. He is our leader, and he's definitely got a vision and a mission that we're chasing. We care about the whole person. I will say this too, like, something that we're thinking about a lot is kind of this wheel of life. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but if you think about the wheel of life, you've got things like financial, and you've got health and wellness, you've got relationships, you've got spirituality, you've got career, you've got all these things, right? And so often in our business, like you said it best, like, all we're thinking about is building projects. But these are humans that are building these projects, and they show up every day, and they've got real life stuff that's happening. They've got, you know, challenges. They might not be sleeping well. Maybe they got behavioral problems, you know, behavioral health problems. Maybe they're not, you know, taking care of their bodies from a nutrition standpoint. And then people wonder, like, why do we have safety issues, or why are we, you know, not having high quality, or why is somebody getting hurt, or, you know, whatever. And it's like, we've got to care for, you know, this whole person, so that they can perform. You know, I've called them dirt world athletes before, and that's really kind of the way that I look at, or that we look at, these amazing people that are out there building America's, you know, or the world's infrastructure. Is they got to get up every day and perform. And if you're going to be the best at what you do, you've got to take care of your whole self. So definitely driven by our mission, live by our core values. Aaron is definitely tip of the spear, guiding us and coaching us on. And he's got this unique perspective because, man, he's traveling the world. He's in Australia. He's in Europe. He's seeing new things, and he's coming back and sharing with us, you know, what he's seeing and what direction we need to go and what's going on. So I don't know if that answers your question, but definitely did I answer it okay?
A little bit. Yeah, no. So we can go a little deeper. So
yeah, please do.
It's interesting to me how leadership has kind of changed. You know, you mentioned that you used to be the youngest guy in the room, and now you're not. I feel very similar. I am now, like, the oldest guy, and I was always by far the youngest. And, you know, 20 years ago, maybe a little more, leadership was mainly like, hey, there's one person who's the most experienced. You kind of don't question that person. They have wisdom that no one else has. And leadership was like that person represents strength, and that person will tell you what to do, and you follow. And then maybe one day when you accumulate the same amount of experience or wisdom, you can be the leader, and then you get to tell everyone what to do. And so what you were articulating is like this, you do see this change, an evolution where it's like focusing first on like, hey, everyone matters. Then it's like, and getting to know people, getting to know what drives people, because everyone has different motivations, but then also caring for and recognizing that there's a lot of different layers to people. Like for someone to contribute successfully, they've got to be kind of firing all cylinders in their life. So if they're neglecting their health, they probably can't bring 100% effort to that day because, or if they have some mental challenges, like there's a lot of more mental health discussion today than there ever has been. So yeah, it's the conversation is very different than what it used to be.
Yeah, totally.
Which is a good thing.
Great point. I'm kind of sitting here thinking about some of the great leadership gurus that are out there. One that comes top of mind is Mark Miller, who we actually have on BuildWitt Connect later today, who's given a presentation. He was the vice president of high performance leadership at Chick-fil-A for 44 and a half years. He has written several books. And one of the books that he wrote, Leaders Made Here, he said something to the effect of, great leaders don't build followers, they build great leaders. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's part of what we're after is we are trying to build leaders, not only within BuildWitt, but in the dirt world, which is super cool. Another guy that I love is John Maxwell, and he always talks about how a leader's responsibility is to help others reach their potential. And so to me, that's, just a lot of fun. Personally, I kind of talk about my four walls of leadership, but it's safety, teamwork, leadership, and recognition. And what that means to me anyways, and how I lead my teams and people is, I think you have to create a psychological safe place, not just safety like wearing your PPE gear, but a safe place to have trust, transparency, communication, etc. To where you can, ultimately identify those challenges, become your best self. Teamwork, nobody gets it very far alone. So, trying to work together. I think with leadership too, I'm always trying to figure out like how to get out of something. It sounds crazy, but it's like it sometimes when you're become the leader, you think, oh, I got to do more. And to me, it's more of like when I become the leader, it's like, how can I find the right person, empower them, support them, grow them, develop them so that I can move on to kind of this next thing. And always try to be out front of the business. And then recognition, I think, is the last piece, but probably one of the most important pieces. Just as humans, we like to know when we're doing well. We like to hear it. If you want repeat behavior, you got to communicate it. And one of the things I would say about the dirt world, especially field first, they don't hear it enough. The office gets all the accolades for winning a bid or profitability on a job or, some milestone or some mark or, whatever goals and objectives that are hit in the office. And it's like, man, I hope that one of the things that we can do as an industry is start to really recognize, just that work and the teamwork and the camaraderie and the good things that are happening out in the field, because ultimately they're the ones who are, I feel like we're here to serve them almost in a way. It's more that inverted pyramid style. So I don't know, kind of dug in a little bit further on some leadership philosophies there.
Yeah, no, I love it because that's, I can see why you guys have had success in building the platform because, the customers, your customers, I've been to the summit, like you don't really have access to this type, like there's no, unless you're a highly motivated individual and you're seeking out the information yourself, like you're going to read the books that you talk about, you're focused on your day-to-day job. And I think, we all have, in terms of like, if we're going to try to improve our leadership, we just think from our own experiences, like, hey, who have been great mentors to me? And I try to emulate those people, but it's really just, up to that individual. And you're giving, people a way to grow in that capacity and access to really talented people who can help.
100%. Yeah. We're definitely trying to point them in the right direction, act as the guide. There's a lot of information out there, right? Like Google's big, YouTube's big. There's more information now than we've ever had access to. And so, where BuildWitt is positioning ourselves as a trusted source in the industry to help be the guide when it comes to the people life cycle, type thing, and leadership, building better businesses and workforce development is kind of that area that we're playing in. So yeah, that's definitely something exciting that we're all about.
Yeah, it's I follow a lot of the same people. Like, I'm very envious of you guys getting stuff going with Jocko. He's unbelievable. Is there anyone that has a different approach to leadership than him that I'd be surprised to hear that you guys have had, are including in your offering?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Man, I'm trying to think through, like, we've got a ton of great people that are out there that are a part of it. One
like
thing
somebody that's like kind of off the wall, that because there's always two
like
ways
at the
to
summit
look at
this
something.
year, we have Jesse Itzler coming, and I don't know if you know much about Jesse.
I do. I know a lot about Jesse. Yes.
Yeah. So I love Jesse. And for those of you that don't know, he's a serial entrepreneur. Married Sarah Blakely.
Yeah, he married very well too.
Started Spanx. But it's two incredibly talented people, both Jesse and Sarah, that were just entrepreneurs at heart that came together, and now they're just a power couple, which is super cool. But the thing I always loved about Jesse was he's just scrappy. He just figured it out every day. Just like something new, iterate, pivot. And just kept reinventing himself and new ideas. And I love with what he did with Marquis Jet and Zekiah Water and all these things with coconut water. I mean, who would have ever thought? But the one thing he did was it's like he developed the New York Knicks theme song. I mean, he was a rapper at one point in time. So to go from rapper to billionaire, it's just kind of wild.
He's an unbelievable hustler.
Yes. Yes.
Unbelievable. Just no fear. Like that's probably the first thing I think about him is just no fear. Will try anything. Will put himself in front of anybody. It's like that is like so many successful entrepreneurs have that quality.
Yeah, he's got some really cool stuff, like some weird thinking, like fruit till noon. So he cares about his health. Right. Well, next thing you know, he's an avid, adventure seeker. So, he has the all day running company, and I've actually got it on my wall here. It's the big ass calendar for 2024. And I will tell you, like, the big ass calendar is super cool. Like, he's got this thing called the Misogi, and it's like you put one big thing on your calendar every year. That's just, and if you do it for 40 years, you've got 40 incredible stories to tell. Mm-hmm. And so, my big thing that I'm doing this year is, here coming up in September, I'm headed out to Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I'm going to do something I've never done before, but I'm climbing Pikes Peak with a group of 40 people. Alex Judd's leading that with Path for Growth. Love that guy. And so, yeah, that's my big Muskogee this year. But if it wasn't for Jesse, I would have never put that on my calendar.
How are you guys successful landing such big names? I mean, year 2, and you have Jesse Itzler. Year 1, you had Jocko. This is what we're talking about is your live events business, the Dirt World Summit, bringing people together. We had just talked more about like the leadership platform, but the live events is a growing part of your business.
Yeah.
How in the world are you able to attract such big names early in your early days?
Well, one, I would say, Aaron's got an incredible, following, and his reach and attention helps us. Like, people want to be aligned in this industry. And so that's a nice alignment for them. 2, they love our mission and what we're trying to accomplish. So we tell our story before we even get to kind of the business side of things. And once they hear about our heart of who we're doing it for, why we're doing what we're doing. And I give Dan Briscoe a lot of credit. He's been a visionary when it comes to the event, and the type of people, and we're brainstorming on who we should go after. We develop this list, and then we start to narrow it down. But it really comes down to, after telling our story, it's just asking. It's having the courage, to reach out and to take a big swing. I'll tell you this, last year, it was a big risk. People have no idea. It was a $3 million product to develop the summit. Mm-hmm. If the tickets don't sell, we still owe the money.
Yeah, I talked to Benjamin about this, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it is something that people, when you say, hey, we took a big risk, they don't really understand. I didn't understand really what was behind that. And you're right. It's like, hey, we had to pony up and block off this many rooms first year, so we have really no idea how many people will come through and attend. Yeah, it's a big risk.
Yeah, especially 800 rooms in Houston, and then a speaker lineup with guys like Jocko Willink. They're not cheap, right? Like if you can go to Echelon Front and go look up how much it costs to get them to come to an event, and it's not cheap. And so, and one thing that we wanted to do was, how do we develop a product that's different from other products that are out there? And one thing that we focused on was not just having a keynote, but a series of keynotes, so that nobody wants to miss a speaker. And so one thing that happened at the summit last year that was fascinating, people weren't out in the hallways on their phones. It was a high ticket price, which brought in more leaders to the event than ever before. So you got the right people in the room with an incredible speaker lineup, and they're there to learn and grow because they want to take it back to their organizations and implement or execute on the ideas that are being talked about. People were listening to every single speaker. And that's what we're excited about, is when you focus on how to build better businesses, how to lead well, and workforce development, we're focused in that area that the industry needs the most support on. And so, it's really exciting to see the caliber of speakers that we have, but it really comes down to, they're aligned with our mission. And we took a big risk in bringing in some of those big names.
So what would you say you learned from year one that you've improved upon for year two? I was there for year one. It was great. I really enjoyed it. We had a couple team members go as well. We're going again this year. What would you say you guys left with after year one? Say, hey, we got to improve these three things, and is in practice for year two?
Yeah. One is, I'll just start with this, year one, hey, where are we going to hold this at? And so we kind of took what was available on short notice. And so going from Houston to San Antonio, we now have a convention center that the entire programming is going to be in. Obviously, the hotel is a little separate, but we're in the convention center. So all the education, training, the workshops, and the exhibit space is all in one big collaborative space. So I think just from a flow standpoint, networking, experience for everyone, it's going to be, much better. Also, Monday's workshops are going to be incredible this year. A little bit bigger space. Last year, we only had room for 30, 40 people, and we had standing room only. People were on the walls. They were out the door. People were trying to get in. This year, we've been able to accommodate for a lot more people in the workshop space, which I think is going to be incredible. And then lastly, we're doing some entertainment this year. So the one thing we found was they don't want to go out. They didn't want to leave. They wanted to stay together. And so how could we create an environment where everybody stays together? A lot of other events that I go to, it's like you come, you learn, and then everybody wants to go out and entertain. Well, everybody wanted to stay together. They wanted to keep learning and growing and building those relationships. So we've got, a comedian and a dinner, one night to kind of keep everybody together. So just we're going to keep listening to people and, what's working, what's not working, and keep iterating. Next year, we've already planned next year. So last thing I'll say is when people leave the summit, the number one thing that they said was, I wish I would have brought more people, because they're actually using this as a way for their leadership team to learn and grow, and then ultimately take it back and and use it, execute upon it. And so this way they don't have to play the telephone game. The more leadership that they bring, they all hear it firsthand experience. So we're starting to see people sign up in groups versus one or two people coming from the company. So excited about that and think it'll have a bigger impact on the industry. Next year, we're going to be in Dallas. We'll roll out the 2025 agenda lineup, speaker lineup. We've already got it all planned out. So really excited at the end of the event to kind of get that out.
Selfishly, are there plans to host it in Florida in the next few years?
Okay, now I'm going to say this on this podcast, and you can't hold me to it. But I'm going to tell you the vision. Hey, it could change. It's BuildWitt, so something could change. We are working on 26 through 30 right now as well. And the plan is we're talking with Opryland Hotels. And so it's Orlando, Nashville, Denver, Colorado, and then back to Dallas. So we would start to get in this rotation around the country that people could kind of count on. So that's what we're moving towards. And then the cool thing is we do these workshops. This year, we had a workshop at First Forum's office in St. Louis, and then we went out to Knife River and in Oregon. People love that. They want to see the country. They want to see new ways of people doing things. So we're in the process right now of closing up. I can just say, early on, March is going to be in Laramie, Wyoming. We're going to go out to Wyotech, so super excited about that.
Okay.
We've got the place for June. We're in deep conversation. We're just waiting on the confirmation. So by Summit, we should be able to reveal where we're going to be at in June.
Your customers, who come to the events, who are interested in, going on the training platform, the workforce development. Yeah, I think you used the term earlier, but I'd like to talk about it a little more. Are early adopters. There are companies that aren't, and this industry is chock full of, this is the way we've done it, for forever. It's not broke. What were those days? And I would imagine, looking from the outside, you've got the bull rolling downhill. Where you have significant momentum, it's probably not as much of an issue. But what were those days like in the early days getting started? Because it's just not the most welcoming to new ideas. And I've always found that customers don't really like talking to each other very much. Like they feel like they have like this competitive advantage or this inside info, and they don't want to let anyone else in on their secret. And so it's impressive to see where you guys have grown in the industry with that mindset.
Yeah, it's good. I've talked about it before, but like I always say, people and businesses are in one of two places. They're either in protect and defend, or they're in learn and grow. And so those learn and grow people are those innovators, those early adopters. A lot of times, and sometimes the early majority, but really it's those early adopters that are kind of challenging the status quo, seeing a better way, trying to figure out, what's next. I would just say this: timing is everything for a lot of things. And we're going from a lot of second gen to third gen business leaders and owners. We're also transitioning generations from a leadership standpoint in companies. And so when you've got a lot of middle managers, let's just say millennials or Gen Xers that have been kind of watching the way that we've always done it for some time, they're now vice presidents. They're now in charge of operations. They're now leading different pieces of the business. They're wanting to lean into technology. They want to work smarter, not harder. They want to figure out how to get off work and go home early. Well, that's a very different culture and mindset than kind of where we've been. And so I think timing-wise, with the industry, some of the things that we're doing is Aaron's kind of tip of the spear. He's shining a light on those companies that started 6 years ago. Aaron has learned that by shining a light on those good companies that are doing great things, people start to follow those companies. Not what BuildWitt's doing, but they're following those companies. And so when you see companies like C.W. Matthews that has been all in with, building a better business, leadership and workforce development, and they see the impact that it's having on their organization, on their communities, on their culture, from an attraction standpoint. It's not about BuildWitt. It's about, damn, CW Matthews is successful. We need to be doing what they're doing. And how do we do that? And so the more that we can shine a light on successful dirt world companies, I think that's what's going to help you. It's what's going to help us with, technology adoption. And I think that we're in that time period now where it's not just early adopters. I think we're starting to move into that early majority where we're going to start seeing more and more people adopting it. The question is, do they implement well? Are they getting the utilization out of it? Is there customer success? Because if they have success with it, success will breed success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And getting wins with some of those companies, yes, I totally agree. It tells the story for you.
Yeah,
right.
Totally. And it's a grind, right? Like it's a grind to get them to move in that direction. But we're starting to see more and more enterprise companies coming on board. And I will say, like, in my opinion, and I'm hopeful and I pray for it often, like when the enterprise groups start to implement, that's when things really start to pick up, because we've got a lot of those early adopters that are kind of smaller, younger, more innovative, more creative, younger owners, less than 25 years, less than 50 years in business. But when you start to get those 50 to 100-year-old companies, those bigger organizations, embracing, new ideas and new technology, and that's when the rising tide really starts to happen. And so I'm excited about the time period.
How do you know, and how does your customer know the value that you've provided? Like, how do they know, like, hey, we made the right decision to invest in BuildWitt? Because I would imagine, for our business, it's pretty simple. It's like, hey, we went to Heave. Oh, we saved 40% on that service, or we got a mechanic in a fraction of the time. Like, it's very easily quantifiable.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a challenge with, because you touched on a little bit, BuildWitt is not cheap. And is there a challenge or a hurdle with, it's not necessarily a tangible, something that I can point to, and how do you guys deal with that?
Yeah, I'm sure Randy's going to be listening, and I'm sure he picked up on that. You guys aren't cheap. Well, it depends, right? Like, so I'll have to kind of.
Sure.
So I got to answer this one real carefully because I know my ELT is probably going to be listening. But here's what I would say. Great question, and I'm glad that you answered, and probably not an easy answer, just to be honest with you. But I'm gonna do my best. It's something we've actually been thinking about a lot, especially on our creative side. So I'll start there. We are a premium brand doing premium work. We feel like from a storytelling, visionary, verbal identity, we build some incredible websites where we, help take amazing photography, videography. It is premium in the industry for sure. You're right. People in the dirt world can quantify return on asset. So if I buy a ready-mix truck for $250,000, I know how many yards it's going to do, what that driver is going to cost. I can put a return on asset, and that's a lot easier purchase than building a website. One of the problems, though, that's in the industry, we've been evaluating some of the top, enterprise companies in the industry. They need to hire hundreds of people right now. If they could bring those people on board, those people are going to give them a return on investment. So by not having the people assets to do the work, there's a way that we can start to quantify careers pages, paid ads, onboarding. Like, you can start to kind of build a case around solving their biggest pain point that's going to ultimately drive revenue for those organizations. So that's something that we're digging into. And the nice thing about those careers pages, because they suck, is it's easy for us to do from a storytelling standpoint to help message and position them in the right way. They don't have to go and change anything. It's just they're just terrible at telling their story. And then ultimately, when you onboard those new people, they need training. They need a 90-day onboarding. So now that leads right into BuildWitt training or it leads into our other products and services.
Yeah, so that is a good answer. So you guys do teach onboarding?
We definitely can consult with organizations in the dirt world about what onboarding should and could look like. Sometimes that starts in creative. Sometimes that starts in BuildWitt training. That conversation might happen at a workshop. It might happen at the summit. So there's multiple places, but we do believe in onboarding and what that could and should look like. And the nice thing about BuildWitt training is you can assign, your first 90-day videos, right? And if you've created content where every morning you're waking up 5 days a week and you're seeing a 3 to 5 minute video about your company mission, your values, your philosophies, your way of doing business. We're recording some incredible content right now with CW Matthews. It's called On the Job. We've done some with Highway Paving. We've done some with another organization. But at any rate, when you can start to see, the CW Matthews way of doing work, and that's part of your onboarding, chances are after that 90 days, they're going to see leadership. They're going to see communication. They're going to chances of them retaining and staying at that organization just go through the roof. And so that cost of acquiring that person goes down. They're providing a return on investment. It's just an incredible process.
No, I totally agree. It's something that is very topical for me right now. And it's something that I never realized how important it was.
Yeah.
We've been growing our head count. We now have 20 employees, which is awesome. I can't believe we're at that point now. But I'd been a part of prior companies where you just get hired, and then it's day one. You'd filled out some HR paperwork, and then you're put to work. And I didn't understand the value of onboarding and how it sets people up for success, but also just like the goal of, and it's got to be very structured and very thought out, like, first couple of days, first week, but you want the new employees overall, like after that period of time thinking, you know what, I made the right decision to come here.
That's right.
And so, yeah, it's something we've been going through recently because we've been adding people. And I just see the difference that onboarding, like a good onboarding makes.
Yeah.
This is an odd question. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Dan just talked about this a little bit too. Like we try to constantly not only look at the industry, but also take our own medicine. So, even at BuildWitt, we're reviewing, we're going through a rebuild right now of our website. And we're like, man, the careers page was an afterthought. Let's take a look at that. What's our website? What's our onboarding process look like? How does it flow through? So it's not just hey, we're looking out there and shining a light on others, but it's also, what are we doing here? Also, just kind of throwing this out there, but for your 20 employees that you have, I know that they're super smart when it comes to diesel mechanics, but imagine if they were on BuildWitt training and they could be learning about the industry and seeing what's going on, soft skills, hard skills. I just sent a quick Slack over to Jack, and for $3,500 annually with a $1,500 implementation fee, your 20 people, including yourself, could be on BuildWitt training. And from a culture standpoint, you could record content yourself. Hey, Alex here coming to you live. Want to talk about mission, want to talk about values, got an update. You can upload that video, send it out to your people. You get a record. You know that they've watched it. It's super easy. So I want to just double back to, while we do have a premium brand, we also have products that are free. Aaron's stuff, free to watch the vlog, free to watch social media. That's not free. It cost us a lot of money to do that stuff, but we've got a spot for it. We've also got, the summit is expensive, but for a leader, if they go get one idea at the summit and come back and implement it, it can save them millions of dollars. So it's just an incredible return on investment, from that standpoint. And from BuildWitt training standpoint, the content, 1,700 videos, it's hard to create content, especially really, really good content. And so for literally, a small amount of money, $5,000 to $7,000 a year, you can have an incredible training platform, for a small business.
Interesting. And this might be a dumb question, but it's something that's come to mind. Workforce development and training. Do you guys help consult on how to interview? I'm amazed at no one teaches how to interview. Like I remember it was like the first time in my career when I had to like manage people and then like hire, and you're like, okay, you're going to interview X amount of people. How the hell do I know what to ask? I've never done it before. There's not a lot of resources on how to like structure an interview, what you want to get out of it. We just now like built out like a formal interview process at our company, but it's just like, once again, it's a topical thing for me. But do you guys help your clients with that part?
To the best of my knowledge, I don't think that we do, but it's a really good idea, and I've made a note of it.
Content for you?
Yeah, it definitely could be and should be an idea for us to think about. But this is what's fun about the training platform is you build relationships, you start listening to pain points and what's going on and what's being done well, what's not being done well, and then we can kind of pivot and go in that direction and create content in that way. One of the things that we could do as well, like we've been working with Fire Seeds. They're sponsoring the summit. Fire Seeds is an incredible recruiting, headhunting type organization. They probably have the expertise on that. So instead of BuildWitt, trying to come up with it ourselves, we turn to the industry and say, hey, this is what we're looking to do. This is why we're doing it. Is anybody out there willing to share best practices? And well, why would they do that? Well, they share best practices with us because we're adding value to these companies, but we're marketing their business, and we're kind of putting them in the limelight of what it's like to recruit or whatnot. So great idea, something I've noted, and we'll definitely double back on that.
Anything that you want to? We didn't really talk much about workforce development. Is there anything that you wanted to get into on that side?
Yeah, I would just say, workforce development is like a catchphrase. It's kind of out there, but it's really about developing your workforce. And so we've kind of been talking about it in a roundabout way through, leadership training in general, things that we're doing, things that we're seeing that's out there. The one thing that we probably didn't talk about a little bit is this BuildWitt Connect idea that's new and fresh. So I'll just kind of high level kind of paint the picture. What is BuildWitt Connect? It's an online private network where people can come to learn and grow. So it's an online community. Right now there's about 65 people in there. We anticipate hundreds, if not thousands. There's a weekly live session that usually has a topic with it. We've got an incredible lineup for this year. Coming. We've got, Mark Miller speaking today. We've got Michael King, which I think you're familiar with, from KFE Solutions, Herb Sargent, Aaron Witt, Scott Pieper, Ryan Schmidt, Jeffrey Spatz, Jamie Cochran from Echelon Front, Dan Garcia, just incredible people that are kind of lined up for that live session. In addition to that, there's going to be tools, resources, videos. You can start discussions. It's a way to peer group. Got a problem, need to solve it. Let's let the industry help solve it for you. And then the last piece I'll say is, along the side, we've got like these spaces. So estimating, project management, operations, finance, recruiting, etc. There's discussion areas so if you have a specific discipline that you're in and you want to go be a part of that group and have those peer grouping conversations, you can have it. So annual fee, monthly fee, super easy to be a part of. So, yeah. So
you can ask Scott Pieper for finance help or advice on financial. Yeah, it's very powerful. 100%. I've gotten to know Scott pretty well. We're here located at the same place. Yeah. Really enjoy him.
Yeah, Scott's incredible. So cash flow is king, as everybody knows. And he'll be in there teaching. He'll be in there answering questions. It's just like peer grouping and consulting, at your fingertips.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, it's fun to see like all these barriers that you guys are breaking down. The collaboration, the sharing of info. It's pretty remarkable. It's impressive to watch from the outside. So I'm over here rooting you guys on, and I look forward to participating again in the November BuildWitt Summit.
Absolutely, man. Glad to have you. Really appreciate you having me on the podcast, and I'm just a phone call away. So if there's ever anything I can do to help out, let me know.
I will take you up on that, and I know it's not an empty offer. So I think we could help some of the contractors in your base in certain areas. So I will be reaching out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, thanks for your time, Jason. It was good to catch up, and we'll see you here shortly in a couple of months.
Yeah, sounds great.
Thanks, man.